Greetings, everyone. We greet you in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Certainly, we appreciate everyone that has tuned in this afternoon for what we think is a very important subject dealing with the COVID vaccine and the pros, cons, side effects. Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Updated information and those kind of questions. We are blessed to have a very what I call prestigious panel, and that's going to be addressing us tonight, and we're certainly anxious to hear the information. Let me start by saying part of the reason that we're doing this, or the main reason we're doing this, is because there has been some convoluted or misunderstood or misinformation concerning the vaccines, and we want to clear those questions up. And when the vaccines were first come out to the public, I know that the Pfizer vaccine was promoted as being a 2-shot regimen of vaccine, and everybody was okay with that. Then the Moderna came out. Then we heard at first that the Moderna would be 1 shot. Then we heard it was 2 shots. So I said, well, we don't need to get information convoluted. So let's get information straight. So that's why I approached the Ministers Fellowship Council, which I'm a part of. I'm the pastor of Christ Temple in Greenberg, but I'm a member of the Ministers Fellowship Council under the leadership of Pastor Trollinger. And we agreed to sponsor this program. Upon sponsoring this program, we got other people to help sponsor, such as Paul Feiner and the Town Board of Greenberg. And we have our County Executive, George Latimer, as a co-sponsor. We have White Plains Mayor, Tom Roach, as a sponsor. And we also have the NAACP of White Plains and Greenberg as a co-sponsor. And I really want to say thank you and appreciate them co-sponsoring with us. So to get things started, I think since this is a minister-sponsored program, I think it would be most appropriate to open up with prayer. So I'm going to ask Pastor Richards if he would come with a brief prayer at this time. Is Pastor Richards on? I can't see everyone, so if Pastor Richards is not on, Pastor Williamson, could you give us an opening prayer?
Yes, sir. Let us pray. Dear God, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for this webinar that we are gathered on tonight, Lord God. We thank you for our presenters, Lord God. We ask that you would bless all that are participating, Lord God, and thank you for our co-sponsors, Lord God. Now, Lord God, would you give us wisdom, guidance, and direction? We give you all glory and all praise. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Now, to get things rolling, I want everybody to be aware that you're getting ready to have a real special treat. I'm ex Francis Sheehan to put up a video, and this video is of yours truly getting the first shot of the vaccine. No one is to laugh. Nobody's permitted to laugh or anything like that. When you see tears rolling down my cheek, they're false tears. So let's roll that, Francis.
Yeah.
And you can start now.
So one thing I want you to know about this shot, you are getting the Moderna vaccine.
Moderna.
After you have had this shot, I want you to know it's going to be a little achy at the site of the vaccine, but it lasts for a couple of days and then it'll start feeling a lot better, okay?
Okay.
Now you are receiving the Moderna vaccine. That is it, sir. I'll put a little Band-Aid on that area and you are all set.
I'm all set now, and I can go home now.
You can go home. This lady here is going to...
Thank you, Frank. Why are all those heads shaking?
I cut out the crying.
I'm waiting for my second shot. So keep me in your prayers. And I want to report that I had no side effects. I couldn't tell anything. I still ate good. I still have 10 fingers and 9 toes. 10 fingers, 10 toes. And I didn't have any side effects, but I took the Moderna vaccine. And I this is not to make anybody hate the vaccine. It's just an opportunity to show you that there are some people that are taking it. Now, the reason I took the vaccine a little bit early is because of a couple of reasons. That I am the chaplain for the police department, and a lot of times I get called out on the police for crucial incidents and de-escalation of emotional problems and things. And so I was in that regiment with the police department as one of the critical workers. So I didn't jump in front of the old people. I just want to make that clear. Now, before we get started, let me set some house rules. We know that this is Zoom, and we have to show respect for everybody. This is important and critical information. So we have to have respect, high respect for everyone on Zoom. And I think the capability for Zoom tonight is around 500 people. I know that we have people on from other states and other towns. So please be courteous. And if you have a question you'd like to ask, we want you to ask those questions, but do not try to take up a lot of time because other people may want to ask questions. This is not a political platform. This is an informational platform. And so we're gonna operate that way. And to start and to open up, I'm going to ask our president, Mr. Reverend Trollinger, to give us about 10 seconds of greetings. And then I'm going to ask Paul Feiner to give us some greetings after that. And then we're going to get to our keynote speakers, and they will give us information. And then we want to open up to a forum. Now, if we hear that you're making too much noise, we will mute you. If you got background, if you're going to be in this meeting or you're going to be doing something else. If you're in the meeting, please don't have your TV on, your radio popping and talking to your neighbor across the street. Your attention needs to be here. You might miss some critical information. So with that being said, can you give us some greetings, Pastor Trollinger?
Good evening, everyone. I am a Baptist minister, so it is thoroughly impossible for me to do anything in 10 seconds. So I just want to be very clear with that point. I want to thank Mr. Feiner and the town of Greenberg, the town in which I grew up in and was raised in and graduated from Westchester County government and the city of White Plains government and the oldest civil rights institution association, the White Plains NAACP branch, for helping co-sponsor this event on this particular night. The Ministers Fellowship Council came together sometime last month, and we had a conversation in regards to COVID-19 vaccines. We had a back-to-back, and in the midst of that back-to-back conversation, we decided within the council that we needed to not have people to have a one-on-one church situation with the information. We decided that all our churches needed to come together and hear the information at the same time. Mayor Roach just does a robocall, and he informed the city of White Plains residents that we presently in the city of White Plains have 619 people who are actively dealing with COVID-19. He also shared with us that we have 44 new cases per day in the city of White Plains. So that means that the virus is not going anywhere and is still active. So we want to share with you information. So let me thank Sister Judith Watson, who's my love, and Mecca Mitchell, my love as well, and everybody else that's joining in with us on tonight. We pray and hope that the information that you receive tonight will give you better information to do and make the right decision in taking the vaccine or holding off. Whatever your choice may be, it's your choice. This session is for one reason and one reason of all, as the flyer said, to get the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Trollinger. Paul Feiner of Greenberg, the Supervisor Greenberg.
I just like to thank you, Bishop Preston and the Ministers Fellowship Council for organizing this very important program. I'd like to thank Reverend Trollinger for your leadership as well. I want to also thank our panelists from the Greenberg and Mount Vernon Health Center and from the Medical Center. Greenberg is so lucky and fortunate to have the Greenberg Health Center in our own town. The Greenberg Health Center, in my opinion, is one of our most precious resources, and they are so responsive, they're so helpful, and they do so much good helping save lives every single day. And the quality of their care is outstanding. We're so fortunate that Judith Watson has led this center. She's an outstanding administrator, and we're really grateful for your efforts. Tonight's program is so important. We hope that everyone who watches takes the vaccine, practices social distancing, and wears masks. We want everyone in the town of Greenberg to be healthy and safe. And if you're careful, if you take vaccines, you'll also help make other people safe as well. So tonight's program is not only for your health, but it's also for the health of everyone you interact with. And I want to mention that the town of Greenberg, we set up a COVID Angels program. We currently have about 150 volunteers who have offered to help residents who don't have computers or who don't know how to get a vaccine. And we're helping them navigate the system. And please email me or call me on my cell phone if you want to sign up. My cell phone is 438-1343. I almost got kicked out of the house today because my phone was ringing nonstop and I was disrupting everybody in my family. But you know, the thing is, this is so important. We don't want anyone not getting the vaccine because you don't have a computer, you don't know how to navigate the system. You find that you're calling the state and nobody's picking up the phone. So if you call me, I will get a COVID vaccine volunteer to do the work for you, to register, to get the appointments. I should just want to have one final comment. Our COVID vaccine angels don't have any special access to the state. We're not getting any special treatment. All our volunteers are doing is what everybody else is doing, getting on the computer and getting back on the computer and back on the computer and back on the computer until you get the appointment. So don't get discouraged. You know, I think with President Biden in office, it's going to get easier. There's going to be vaccines, you know, more and more vaccines. You're going to get your vaccine, you're going to get your shot, and hopefully we'll all be healthy. So thank you so much.
That was a good long 15 seconds. No, I'm kidding. Okay, thank you, Paul. And with that, I haven't seen Mr. Latimer. Is the George Latimer on?
Not yet.
Not yet. If you come on, we'll drop back with him. Is Mr. Roach on from White Plains? Not yet. Okay, not yet. So we're going to go to the leader of our NAACP for White Plains and Greenberg, Ms. Griffith. Ms. Griffith is going to give greetings.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for putting this together. This is a much needed conversation in our community. There's so much skepticism around with the vaccine. So I am really happy to be able to let the community know that this forum is happening tonight. Everyone needs to get the facts. We're not pushing for you to take the vaccine, but we are encouraging you to get as much education and information about it so that you can make an informed decision. So thank you so much for having us, and I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Janice. So let's give all our panelists, our greeters a hand. I'm getting ready to. I'm getting ready to say amen. If I say amen, that's who I am. So with that being said, we'll get right into this. Our first speaker is Miss Judith Watson, and she is with the Mount Vernon Health Center, and we're going to ask her to come, and she may address some of the lead questions that are on the flyer. And it's in your hands, Judith. Thank you for so much. I love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it. Talk to us.
Good evening, Mount Vernon. I'm in Mount Vernon right now. Good evening, Greenberg family. I am thrilled to be here. Bishop Preston, Pastor Trollinger, Supervisor Finer, members of the town board, and everyone, my fellow panelists, good evening. When Bishop Preston called and asked me way back in December if I'd be interested in taking part in a discussion such as this, I said, absolutely, just tell me where I need to be and when I need to be there, and I'll be there. As you know, Greenberg Health Center has been in your community there for close to 50 years. I'm CEO of the Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center, which encompasses Greenberg Health Center, Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center, the Yonkers Community Health Center. We have sites in White Plains and Valhalla, and we have school-based health centers. So we provide primary care. You all know what we do, and I'm not going to take up much time getting into it because you know what we do. We're family. And so I am here tonight along with my colleagues just to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine tonight, why it's important. As the bishop said, we're not going to try to convince anyone that they should take this vaccine. We're just going to lay out the facts. We're going to answer your questions, and it'll be a wonderful discussion. So I'm pleased to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. And with that, we'll go to Westchester Medical Center. Well, before we go to Westchester Medical Center, let me say that Dr. Glenn Davis, who is the head physician at the Greenberg Health Center, he is online listening, but he don't have a facility wherein he can speak to us tonight. So you three speakers will be key as far as speaking to the people, and Dr. Davis is listening in the background. So I want to say that. I just spoke with him on the phone. So I'm going to turn it over to Westchester Medical Center. I don't know if everyone knows, but Westchester Medical Center has been designated as the hub for the vaccine for Westchester County. And I tell you, we are really blessed to have such a mecca, such a powerful institution such as Westchester Medical Center in and around our area. So I'm going to turn it over to these two doctors, Dr. West, and I'm not going to try to put a butcher knife to Mill's name, last name. I'm just saying Mill, Dr. Mill. That'll be okay. And we let them speak in their own way. I don't know which one want to be first, but they are with the Westchester Medical Center, and we thank you for coming out this afternoon. Oh, in your hands.
Good evening, Greenberg, Town of Greenberg, and thank you so much for inviting us. I'm thrilled to be part of this discussion. I hope that I can impart as much knowledge and share information as possible. I'll just give a little background about myself. I'm Dr. Gazelka David West. I'm a gynecologic oncologist here at Westchester Medical Center. So my training is in obstetrics and gynecology with a specialty in the cancer component of this field. I hope to share an interesting perspective on the COVID vaccine as I take care of cancer patients. I am a woman, so I can speak to women's health, and of course I'm a women's doctor, so I can speak to that aspect. And I think an interesting personal thing is I am pregnant, and that's another big topic in this whole scenario and vaccination with pregnancy. And I did get my first dose of Moderna. And so I'm happy to speak to that as well. But I thought that would offer a lot of information to several of our viewers today. Thank you for having me.
All right.
Dr. Mill.
Hi. Hi. Good evening, Greenberg. I'm Dr. Mill ATN. I'm a neurologist, and I subspecialize in epilepsy and brain injury medicine. So take care of a lot of people with traumatic brain injuries from accidents and other things like that. I also am in the military, where I got to use a lot of that skill on treating TBIs. I'm also the president of the New York State Neurological Society, and I'm vice chancellor of diversity and inclusion at New York Medical College. One of the things that I would say I'm, bringing to the table is I do teach a 4th-year course on multiculturalism in medicine, for which most of our 4th-year students take, to get them to understand a lot of the things like structural determinants of health, structural racism, to make sure that all of our medical students who graduate have a firm understanding of that. Just briefly, as we all know, we saw the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on certain communities. And those same communities now, I know many of them are a little bit suspicious about the vaccine. So we're going to hope this evening to try to dispel some myths about the vaccine. I do spend a lot of time talking to our medical students about the infamous the National Public Health Service study on Tuskegee. I happen to be a visiting scholar at Tuskegee, so the director of the bioethics center there says, "Don't call it the Tuskegee experiment. That was not our experiment. It was the National Public Health Service on Tuskegee." So we are really careful to make sure we say that. And I think that's a piece that, for me, when I talk about this vaccine, I don't avoid that topic. I say we're going to tackle it head on, because that's something that's in the back of a lot of people's minds. And it's important that we do talk about it, and show why this is different from that, and why we do have some trust in this vaccine. And as Dr. David West mentioned, she took her first dose of the vaccine. I've taken both doses of the Pfizer vaccine already. And I'm here to tell you about that experience. And anything else, any other questions you might have. I look forward to having this great discussion with you all.
Thank you. With that being said, let me do a leadoff question, and I think then after that you can just jump in. Now I can't see everybody, so if you wave your hand and I don't see you, you may just have to jump in. But please be courteous. The first question,
Bishop, before you start, Bishop, if we could just, for the people that are watching on cable, if they would like to send an email to vaccine at greenbergy.com, we're monitoring that and taking questions that way.
Thank you, Francis. And yes, and we will slide those questions in. We have someone monitoring the website, so please, if you have questions, put them out there, and they will read your question. The first question on the flyer, it says, "How does the vaccine work?" Can either of you tell us that? I think that's a good question to ask, to get people to understand the biological and the chemical effects that it might have.
Yeah. You want me to comment, or you want? Okay. So this vaccine is a little different from other vaccines that we've many of us have gotten. What's different about this vaccine, as you've probably heard on the news, that this is an mRNA vaccine. So it's not the type where they inject you with a sample of the virus, at least the ones that are available now. Right now, we have 2 available that have gotten the emergency use authorization by the FDA, and they're mRNA vaccines, which means that they're injecting this mRNA into your system. So your body is actually mounting an immune response to the spike proteins. I'm sure by now everyone has probably seen a picture or replica of what the coronavirus looks like. They call it, the corona is the Latin word for crown. So it looks like it's got a crown surrounding it. And that crown comes from the spike proteins that project from the actual virus. So your immune response that you're actually forming is to the spikes that make up that crown. So it's not to the actual virus, but because all the virus has that crown, you end up, if you get infected, your body would immediately see that, see that virus, and would think it's that same spike protein that you've got an immune response to, and be able to attack it so that you don't get sick.
Thank you. Okay, anyone have a question you'd like to pose at this time? He answered that question so well, nobody has a question.
I have a question. Good evening. How
Good
are
evening.
you? Thank you, Bishop, for putting this event on. We're excited to partner with you. The question I have, I did hear that people with allergies, I have an allergy, so I was curious to see which vaccine would work better, or is one better than the other? Is one better for one for the person with the allergies? How does that work?
So I think we can both probably answer this. I can speak to it from one aspect. So the allergy, it's really kind of based on your history and what allergic reaction you do have. And it's really looking at kind of the preservatives or the materials they use to create the vaccine. And so online, it's very public what all the ingredients are. And some people know for a fact they have a specific allergy to X, Y, and Z. So you can look through that list and see if you have that specific allergy. In the patient population I take care of, the cancer patients, something that has come up is that one of the ingredients, PEG, the polyethylene glycol, is actually an ingredient that is in one of the very common cancer drugs we use called Taxol or paclitaxel. So this medicine has that, and there are some people who have a very severe reaction to that specific chemotherapy. And so if you know for a fact or know somebody who's had that chemotherapy, who's had a severe reaction, that is a person who cannot get either of these vaccines because that ingredient is there. So I think it's really just kind of looking down that ingredient list and determining if you have a specific allergy to one of those components or not. I'm sure Dr. Mill can add to that as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, and obviously always, regardless of what we tell you tonight, always check with your doctor just to make sure it's safe for you. One of the things I did volunteer to give the vaccines. And one of the things I did as a precaution, if anybody showed up and had history of allergy and their doctors permitted them to take the vaccine, instead of the regular 15-minute monitoring we do, so you probably know after you get the vaccine, you are monitored for 15 minutes. So people who have history of allergic reactions of any sort, I would just keep them for 30 minutes, just to give them a little bit of added safety. And one of the things I also noticed is that people with history of allergies, many of them actually showed up with their EpiPens, just to be on the safe side. That way, if something were to happen, you're taken care of.
Is that recommended to carry an EpiPen if you have a severe allergy or no?
Well, I mean, in general, if you know you have severe allergy, COVID aside and vaccines aside, you probably should be carrying your EpiPen if it's something that you might be readily exposed to. It's not a current recommendation to carry EpiPens for this vaccine, but if I have serious, because if you have a history of severe allergies, you never know what you might have a severe allergy to.
Right.
I would just play it safe.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. I think that's a great question because 3 days before I went to take the vaccine, and I took the Moderna, I talked to him. I had an appointment with my primary care physician, and I have I have a moderate allergy with penicillin. And so I talked to my doctor, and she told me this should be okay. It shouldn't be anything in there to counteract or cause any reactions from with penicillin. So I worked out okay. I didn't have any problem. But that is a great question. That's a great question. So talk to your. I'm not a doctor, but talk to your doctor, and before you take the vaccine. It's a good recommendation from the bishop. Any other questions?
Mr. Preston?
Yes.
Yes. I want to find out, what about underlying conditions such as diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure and things like that? What about underlying conditions and the vaccine?
Yeah, so one of the things we've noticed is that people with these underlying conditions have been having worse outcomes when they contract COVID. And so the general recommendation are those people should get the vaccine. In fact, if you look at the state website for New York State, you're going to see certain conditions that they've listed that are getting prioritized to get the vaccine because of the fact that you could potentially have a worse outcome. So there are some conditions of certain patients I have in neurology and other fields where we aren't recommending the vaccine, and that's why it's so important to reach out to your doctor to verify whether or not it's safe for you to take it. But I can tell you, I've had a lot of calls the last month of patients asking, should I get the vaccine? And every single one of the ones who have asked, the answer has been yes. So it's a really rare that, they're rare instances that people should not get the vaccine.
Right. I'll piggyback on that and say absolutely, I agree with that. These are the conditions in patients who have worse outcomes. Also, in pregnancy, we see worse outcomes with COVID. And so this is why in the United States, we have advocated for pregnant women to not be excluded and to receive the vaccine if they choose. Again, it is a choice. Some people may still not feel comfortable, but because we know the risk of developing COVID while pregnant is higher rate of complication to the mother and to the developing fetus. In the cancer patient population, really they are also high risk, they're immune compromised, so they could have worse outcome as well. They're just, again, select scenarios if they've had a recent bone marrow transplant, or they're on an immunotherapy regimen that might suppress their response to vaccine. These are people you may want to delay, but as Dr. Mill said, really, there's very few scenarios that we're saying don't get it.
Thank you. And I'm going to, for the next question, I'm going to ask Judith to respond to this. And this is one of the questions I've been approached with all day today, really. And there's where is the vaccine available, and will it be available? That is running people crazy. So if you can speak to that.
Now, that, Bishop, is the $1 million question, right? Therein lies the challenge. So on one level, you hear, get the vaccine, it's safe, it's effective, it's the best thing that you can do. And then you hear the vaccine isn't available, you can't get it any place. So there was this, just today actually, there's a list of sites that actually received allocations of the vaccine in the county, and they were primarily pharmacies, right? So primarily pharmacies, and I think St. Joseph Hospital received 600 doses. As you know, Greenberg Health Center, Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center is a federally qualified community health center. We have not received any vaccine in a few weeks, although we've ordered. And the requirement is that you pre-book, although they've changed the title of pre-booking to, and I don't know what it is today, but each week we go and we order what we believe that we need for the following week. And there's no guarantee that actually receive allocation. I'm sorry. There's no guarantee in terms of how many doses you'll receive. And so where can you get it? There's a New York State website, and Mecca, you're on the calls with me every morning at 9:30, the daily hub calls. There's a website, the New York State website. You can go on and you can look to see which sites have the vaccines. And again, they're far and few between. And so we're all in a holding pattern. We're waiting to see whether or not we'll be receiving the vaccine. The county center, as you know, has been erected, and they've erected a vaccination site there, and there are other sites that are being erected all throughout the state. And it's fluid, it changes every day. There's a New York State website and
Ms. Roper, if Ms. Roper has a question, I would just ask if you could kindly keep your mic muted until the panelist is concluded, and then we'll be happy to call on you. Thank you.
You finished, Judith?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Roper, would you you have a question? You have to unmute your mic if you have a question. Okay, thank you.
Hello?
Yes.
I have a question.
There's a New York State website and
I couldn't hear you, Ms. Roper.
Kindly keep your mic muted until the.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other question?
Yes, I have a question.
Go right ahead.
It's Naomi. Okay.
Yes, I figured that. That's my secretary, y'all.
Yes.
Don't get-
I came on late. I just want to confirm. If someone has cancer,
Miss Roper,
is
Miss
it a-
Roper, let me get one at a time. Miss, Naomi, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Okay. You want I'll let her go first and then I'll wait.
Go ahead, Miss Roper. Go ahead.
I just came, if someone has cancer.
Any other question? Yes. Ms. Roper, if you could turn your TV down or whatever device you're watching, just be on the Zoom only. I think that's possible.
Miss Roper, you have something going on in the background. We hear that. We need to turn that down, turn it off, and then you come back on with your question, okay?
Particularly if you're watching this on cable, it won't work if you're also
Yeah,
on
watching
Zoom.
it on cable at the same time you're trying to talk.
You
It
need to
really
turn down
works.
your,
We cannot hear you. So turn one of the instruments off.
Okay, I'm sorry, I came on late. If someone has cancer.
Okay, Miss Roper.
Ms. Roper, you have another device that's on because we can hear it's about a 7-second delay. If you can turn off whatever else has a speaker on it, so that when you unmute yourself, you're only speaking on Zoom, that would be very helpful because we really can't make out what you're saying.
So, Ms. Roper, I think your question is if a person has cancer, is it recommended that they take the vaccine? If someone can speak to that.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Roper, I'm glad we could interpret that. I know with Zoom and all this virtual meetings, things get challenging. So yes, we are recommending that our patients with active cancer undergoing active treatment or history of cancer do get prioritized for the vaccine. Again, it's very few are told not to, and it's really the main reason not to right now in the cancer patient population is if they have a history of a severe allergic reaction to the class of drug called paclitaxel or taxane based drug, because an additive in that is one of the ingredients of the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, and so that is the component that could cause a severe reaction, allergic reaction.
Great question, Miss Roper. Thank you. Naomi Beeman.
Okay, thank you. My question is, considering a person's underlying conditions and the fact that there's a couple or more vaccines out there available, comparatively, would you suggest one vaccination versus another? What the content of the vaccines are comparative? Do they have the same thing? Do we know the difference in the different vaccines themselves, or are they pretty much the same thing? I mean, that's my question.
Yeah, the two vaccines that are currently available are pretty similar. They're both mRNA vaccines. And the data, the only real difference between the two as far as their emergency use authorization is that the Moderna is approved for people 18 and over, and the Pfizer vaccine is approved for people 16 and over. And that's really based on, who they had in the clinical trials. In general, when a vaccine or a drug gets any form of approval or authorization, it's based on the population that it was studied on. And so this is why, that difference is there. There are two others in the pipeline, which are actually different from the current vaccine. As you probably know, there's a Johnson & Johnson vaccine coming out, and there's an AstraZeneca vaccine that was approved in England, which we're expecting at some point may get an emergency use authorization in the US as well. But for now, the two that we have available are very similar in terms of the way they work.
Okay, so you wouldn't recommend one over the other, basically?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the other difference between them is the storage, the way they're stored. That's why a lot of times the Pfizer vaccine, you'll notice, is often being administered from a hospital or other healthcare facility, because they actually have the appropriate freezers to keep it at that low, that very low temperature. But those are the main differences right now.
Thank you.
And just to add to that, when you're going to get vaccinated, you don't get to pick. It's whatever they have in stock or whatever is available at that moment, at that time. And so, which I think speaks to the fact that they're comparable, and one is not better than the other. One is not preferred for a certain population versus another.
Thank you.
Okay, with that question and something that Dr. Mills said, that the study was from 18 and older and 16 and older. Will there be a study done with the younger age, or to see how it works with them? And the other question is, from my information, is that when the Johnson & Johnson comes out, it does not require a low freezing point, and you can keep it in a regular refrigerator. Would that help with facilitating vaccinations by maybe getting pop-up places such as churches, community centers to do vaccinations? How is that looking?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think the less requirements there are for storage, the easier it's going to be to distribute it. The other piece is, one of the things I've noticed that limits how many people you can vaccinate is the current requirement to observe the people after the vaccination. So having to, a vaccine takes you about a minute to administer. I mean, really, you could come in, I could probably do like 100 people an hour. But because of the fact that after we give them the vaccine, they have to sit there for 15 minutes, that slows down the process. So if there's a way, I don't know how these other ones are going to be authorized, but if that requirement is removed, that can make a big difference in terms of how quick you can vaccinate people. But obviously the supply is going to matter also, how much supply we have.
Okay.
Correct. And as far as the age groups, I don't know specifically data on that, and I don't know if Mill can speak to that, but the way usually with vaccination trials and the way these work, there's always ongoing safety analyses and evaluations. Future studies will be done, continued studies, and it'll be eventually opened up to various age groups. I think if we just look at historically with vaccines that we give to our children now, they obviously went through a very similar rigorous process to be eventually approved for a pediatric population.
And Bishop,
Yes.
President, in regards to the use of churches and community centers, we housed the vaccine on Monday and Tuesday, and the medical group came with their portable refrigerators, and it was kept right there. So the coldness of it is not an issue in regards to where they can do the administration of the shots. Thank
you, Pastor. That's good information. So the problem is we got to get enough doses so we can open up more places. It seemed to be. Any other question?
Yes. Those of you who are in the medical profession, do you have any concern whatsoever in terms of the short period of time that this, the studies were done before the vaccine was released to the public? Any concern?
Maybe I'll start before the physicians because they can give you that perspective. No concerns whatsoever. No concerns whatsoever. We know that, as one of the physicians pointed out, this is a vaccine that's been used in cancer drugs. This isn't new. I think that, and maybe one of the things we ought to address this evening is the elephant in the room, because everyone wants to know, how is it that this vaccine was approved so quickly? And I think we probably should spend a little time explaining that, because that's probably the most common question is, number one, there was distrust for the previous administration. So there was distrust, so no one believed anything that was coming out of Washington. And the fact that how is it that vaccines typically take 8 to 10 years to get approved, but you all got it done in less than 8 months? So that's really the elephant in the room that I think that we need to address. Because 9 out of 10 people who I speak to, that's the question that they ask. Now, because I understand and I know the medical facts surrounding how it got done that quickly, I had no trepidation whatsoever. But let me turn it over to the physician.
Yeah, Judith, I think the first question was great, and then I think the question you decided to have us lead into the answer was great. And what's interesting about that is I actually did sit in on a forum with the vaccine developers a couple of weeks ago, and a young woman who is a virologist who has been spending really the last 10 or so years working on coronavirus type vaccines ever since the SARS took place. And really that happened when I was an intern, 2002, 2003. So they've actually been working on this type of technology and this type of method for vaccinations way before the COVID-19 came out. Think about your latest iPhone. How did I have iPhone 12 so quick and this new technology? Because they've been working on these things for a long, long time. And now when the opportunity comes in, you can actually use it. And what's actually very different about this from a lot of other conditions in terms of getting the vaccine is that this coronavirus spreads so rapidly around the country, it makes it a lot easier to run the tests, the clinical trials. So usually when you're trying to do a trial, it's hard to find the subjects. It's hard to find people who are going to be exposed to the condition. It's really, really hard. So this makes it take years and years and years. With this virus, it spreads like wildfire. And so it's very easy to test it because you just say, you can find anybody. It's hard. Now, as of a couple of days ago, they said there was one county that was holding out that had not gotten coronavirus in the whole country. I think it was maybe somewhere in Hawaii. And now it's got it. So the virus is literally in every single county in the United States. So this facilitates the ability to do the clinical trials. Anybody who's done research knows that's one of the big holdups of your trials is getting the appropriate subjects, people who will have the exposure so that you'll know whether or not it worked. So because of the fact that it's so rampant, we're able to find out right away because it's so easy to get exposed. And they saw that the people who were given this vaccine weren't getting sick, and those who got sick did not end up in the ICU. 100% for Moderna and for Pfizer did not end up in the ICU, which is huge. That's a big number because really, when it comes to getting coronavirus, I don't want to get it, but what I really don't want is ending up in the ICU. Okay, so because if I get it, I'm like, okay, whatever, I got it, but I don't want to be in the ICU. And these vaccines prevent that. And that's one of the scary things about this virus is that we have no idea how it's going to interact with our bodies. A large part of the deaths and illness, especially the younger people who are getting sick, is because of our immune system's reaction to the virus. So I don't know how my body would react to that virus, which is why I want the vaccine because I know my body handled the vaccine just fine, but I don't know what it would have done with a true coronavirus. But that's part of why, hopefully that made sense, why we were able to get that trial done so quickly is because the disease is so rampant in in America.
Yeah, that was very well said. And I'll just, again, a little piggyback on that is really, I think we can all agree that the past administration sensationalized a lot of things that probably they shouldn't have. And, I think we have to just go back to the science. If you trust in science and believe in science and understand that these are things, developing mRNA vaccines it's been ongoing. This is a technology that they've been looking at for years. So if that was sensationalized and that was what was advertised, I think people would respect and recognize that this is not something that just happened overnight. Like a scientist just woke up and said, okay, let's do an mRNA vaccine. It's a method that has been used for years. And it's just, again, has with how widespread this virus has been and infected, you have so many people, just like Mil mentioned. So it's easier to test on and rapidly produce a product.
Yeah, I have a question. Can I? James Robinson, hello everyone. Question. once you get the 2 shots, 2 vaccines, what's the possibility, or do we have any data on if you can still get the virus? And secondly, can you just talk the importance of still keeping your distance, wearing a mask after you get the 2 shots?
That's my question.
Yeah, absolutely. So after you get the vaccine, you are still at risk for getting the infection. And that's why it's important that we still do social distancing, wear your mask, wash your hands, do all those protocols. But more importantly, even though you won't get very sick by getting the virus, you might pass it on to somebody else who could get very sick, especially if they don't have the vaccine. So we don't want to say, okay, now that we got the vaccine, we could all be careless now and just start spreading it to everybody, so we all get a mild case. But you don't really want that. It's you want to still follow all those protocols so that you don't get infected. In fact, I know somebody who got the vaccine and a week later got the infection. And now that complicates your course of your vaccinations because the CDC guidelines indicate that if you get infected in the middle of your vaccinations, you actually have to put off the vaccine your next dose until you're better. If you got really sick, you got to wait till you've healed, you're doing better, then you can get your second dose. So that actually throws off your course of the vaccinations. And after one vaccine, I think both trials showed you about 50% immunity. And it's after the second shot that you're hitting that 95, 90, the high 90s percentage immunity. So really don't drop your guard. This is not the time to drop your guard after you get the vaccine. That's, the fact that you got the vaccine, you say, good, now I'm protected, but I want to make sure I still keep protecting everybody else so that you don't end up spreading it as an asymptomatic spreader.
So in everyday language, I have a question. In everyday language, bottom line, what is the benefit of and I heard the questions. What is the benefit of taking these vaccines if you still have to do the same thing? Now, I don't want to go hugging on everybody and shaking hands, but I need to understand because I hear so much that you take the vaccine, but you have to do the same thing you were doing before. And even if you take the second one, you're still liable to get the virus. I just need to understand, why am I taking the virus if I can still, take the vaccine if I can still get the virus, I still have to socially distance. And I know everything takes time, but for me, I just need to understand, to take this vaccine, what does that mean in the long run, down the line, for me?
So I think, in the most simple way to think about it is that taking the vaccine will help you if you do get the virus, will help you have a decreased sickness from it, basically. I think that I think is probably the best take home that we can give in the most simple way, is that the virus is still there. The vaccine is not 100% protective, right? We've shown that with the second dose, with the first dose, it's 50% decreased risk, and then and then 95% with your second. But there's that still 5% chance, very small, but it's still 5%. It's not zero. And so if you do stop with the social distancing and the mask wearing, then you have that small percentage chance of developing the virus. With the vaccine, if you develop the coronavirus infection, it's going to be hopefully a much milder case. And just like Mill mentioned, you won't end up in the ICU. That would be the goal. Without the vaccine, the percentage rate is higher to get the virus, and then the higher rate of having a worse outcome if infected.
Okay, has that been confirmed?
I'm sorry?
I heard you say hopefully, but has that been confirmed?
Yes, the trials have shown that the people who got the vaccine did not end up ending in any kind of ICU, requiring ventilators and those kinds of things. Johnny, I think your question is excellent. And I think it's one of the most common questions that are being asked right now. And I'm going to go away from vaccines and COVID right now and just give you a different scenario. Think about driving your car, and you go into your car and you put on your seatbelt because you're a safe driver. You don't want to get hurt. And in case you crash the car, you want to make sure you're good. And you say, wow, if I'm wearing my seatbelt, why can't I just get drunk and drive? Well, because bad things might still happen. So these things, nothing's 100% in life. And you say, well, if I have my seatbelt on, why do I need car insurance? These are all safety measures that we take, that we say, no matter, our best efforts, we do our best in life, but nothing's 100% ever. And so because of that, although we get the vaccine and we feel comfortable, say, great, I've got a really good chance that I'm not going to get sick from the coronavirus, but I still got to, go one step further and wash my hands, do the social distancing, and do all those other things, because bad things can still happen despite your best efforts.
That was wonderful, Dr. Mill. If I could just add to that, right? So I actually had COVID disease in March, right around the time that it landed, right? So I actually had COVID disease, and it was a mild case. I was sent home on doxycycline. I was sick for about 48 hours, and I was okay. Apparently infected a lot of people here at the health center, but I was okay nonetheless. I took the vaccine, right? I took the vaccine. And some people say, why'd you take the vaccine? You had COVID. Why'd you take the vaccine? Well, I took the vaccine for the reasons that the physicians pointed out. Yes, I could still, who knows? I could probably still contract COVID, right? But my illness will be less. It will be lessened. I will have less symptoms. It will be a milder case of COVID. And yes, I still have to wear my mask and practice social distancing and wash my hands and avoid crowds. But it's important that I take that vaccine despite having been infected, because I feel like I was infected. I shouldn't have to take the vaccine. No, Judith, no, you do. You have to take the vaccine. And I think it was a great question.
Yeah, I think that was a great question, and I had the COVID in the second week in January, before anybody knew what the virus was. I just know I got sick. I put it on. I had the flu, and in September, I had my physical, and I told the doctor to say, check me, see if I have the antibodies for the virus. And she checked it, and she said, you had the virus quite a while ago. And when she said that, my mind went back to the second week in February when I was some kind of sick for about 5 days. And so I took the vaccine, and I'm waiting for my second injection. But I think the other thing is that you may want to speak to it, is that the practice of the safety measures is not only for yourself, but you're protecting others, because you can be asymptomatic and still pass the virus if you don't wear a mask, don't practice washing your hands and those kind of things. Am I correct?
There's a message in the chat that I've been
correct.
asked to state from Ms. Lampley. It says, good evening. Thank you for all for having this panel discussion. Although the vaccines have been approved by the FDA for authorization for emergency use due to the pandemic, will it have to ultimately be given final approval by the FDA, or would that not be necessary due to the existing authorization for emergency use?
Yeah, eventually the FDA, we expect in due time that the FDA will give an actual full approval. But, because of the urgency of the matter, that's why they had to go through the process of doing the emergency use authorization. I don't know the timeline of when that actual final approval will actually take place.
I have a question. My name is Corinne Laurie Maben. I have a question around the recommended time frame in between vaccines. So let's say if you take the flu vaccine, what's the recommended time frame before you can actually take either the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine?
I've seen 2 weeks. Mill, you can maybe speak to that, but that's the recommendation that I've seen, 2 weeks between vaccinations.
That sounds about right. And the other thing is, when you go to the website to sign up for the vaccine, there's actually a questionnaire, and it'll ask you, have you had any recent vaccinations, and you'll be excluded based on the time limit. It'll actually indicate that. One of the things about this, because it's an emergency use authorization, is they're being very, very careful about who gets it. So you do have to answer all these questions just to be on the safe side, to make sure that nothing, it doesn't get confusing. Is this a side effect of the flu vaccine or a side effect of the COVID or some other vaccine you're getting? Just because there's lots of different vaccines people are taking right now.
I have a question. Can we go back to the antibodies? So when the pandemic initially started, they said if you had the antibodies, you were okay. So you were almost safe, if you will. But now I just learned, I'm hearing you're going to have the antibodies, but you're still going to have to take the vaccine. I'm a little confused on what is the purpose of the antibodies if that was supposed to be a preventative from getting the disease from back when we initially was learning about this pandemic. So can you explain that a little more for me, please?
It mutated.
I'm sorry?
Well, so with regards to the antibodies, one of the challenges with the antibody is that at the moment, we don't know how long the antibody will stay in your system. Okay, so a lot of times if you get infected with something, a lot of times you end up being immune to it from the future. Like if you get chicken pox, you don't get chicken pox a second time. Your body forms antibodies, and now you've built up your immunity. And we know with chicken pox, those antibodies pretty much last almost basically a lifetime. This is a new virus, so we don't know how long those antibodies are going to last in your system. And they may last forever, but we don't know yet. And the only way we're going to find out is by doing trials, which are ongoing, where they are checking people's antibodies, who have had the COVID, and seeing, oh yeah, look, 1 year out, you still have antibodies. Then we know that you have that lasting immunity. But because we don't know that, that's why it's important that we recommend the vaccination for that. And even with that, the vaccination, they've done a 1 week, with Pfizer, it's 1 week, then 3 weeks later, Moderna 1 week, then 4 weeks later. We don't know how long those antibodies will stay in your system that you're going to be mounting to this vaccine. And that's why certain vaccines, if you remember, like your tetanus shot, right? Every 10 years, you get your tetanus booster because of the idea that they think that those antibodies to the tetanus might be going down. And so every 10 years, you go back for your booster. With a new virus, we don't know yet enough about it to know how long those antibodies will stay in your system.
Yeah, I think that's a simple way to think of it is so if you had the coronavirus infection and you got tested and confirmed you have antibodies, the vaccine is like your booster. You're kind of one step ahead of everybody else who probably didn't have the actual infection. I think Harriet Coy, I keep seeing her raising her hand or looking like she has a question.
Yes.
She's
Thank you. Yes, I was just wondering, does this vaccine with this mutant that is coming out like from South Africa and Great Britain, do we know yet if this vaccine is effective, will be effective for those two viruses that they say that are already out there somewhere?
I saw a very quick news headline that said Moderna is stating that theirs will cover the new strain, but I'm not sure about Pfizer. I don't know if Mill, you've heard anything else, but Moderna is reporting that theirs should cover the new strain.
Yeah, the general thing I've seen is what you just talked about, Dr. David West, which is two things. One is they think that both vaccines will likely be able to give you immunity from these new strains. And two, the Moderna, what they're saying right now is that you might need a booster on the Moderna to mount a better immunity. But that's not clear. Remember, the immunity this technology is you're forming antibodies to the spike protein that surrounds, that crown on the coronavirus. So as long as that crown on this mutant looks the same, and your body still recognizes it, then it should work. But if that crown is slightly different shape. Instead of a rectangle, it's a triangle. We don't know. I mean, we don't know what the specifics are, but it all has to do with whether or not your immune system recognizes that new strain. So they're sorting that out, but you know, the hope is that that they both would cover it. But right now, Moderna seems to be taking the lead and saying, no, ours really does, and you just need a booster.
Thank you.
I had 3 other people that called me about that same question, Sister Harriet. So that was a good question. Very good question. Anyone else?
I have a question.
Yes.
My name is Angela Farish. I run the housing authority here for the city of New Rochelle, so I'm sneaking in over in Greenberg. But I wanted to find out what would be the best messaging for to dispel the rumor that the vaccine is causing all of these side effects. That is definitely a concern that my residents have. Well, Ms. Farish, you know, this vaccine is causing, you know, people to die or, you know, to get Bell's palsy. What is the best messaging, you know, to dispel those rumors?
Whoever's going to answer that, if you could summarize the question, because the audio was a bit low.
The question was, how do we dispel the idea that these vaccines are causing side effects like death, Bell's palsy, and other bad side effects? Dr. David, you want to take it, or you want me to?
You can start. I'm sure I'll have plenty to add.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a neurologist, so I have patients say, I had Bell's palsy already. I don't want to get another Bell's palsy from this vaccine. No, yeah, it's pretty rare that anybody's getting, you know, a death would be highly unusual. Bell's palsy, I think I've heard of a couple of cases happening. None around here that I've seen. I'm sure they'll end up in my office if they do get a Bell's palsy. You know, these things do have side effects every now and then. I can tell you when I had my second dose of the vaccine, I did feel pretty sick. And, you know, I'm not going to make it rosy. I felt bad. I was in bed. And after a day, I felt like brand new. All the side effects just disappeared overnight. But I did feel pretty sick for a day. Took some, you know, medications, you know, Tylenol, those kind of things. So you might get some, you know, mild side effects, some arm soreness. One of the nice things I have to say about this whole vaccine effort is that I believe I want to say it's the CDC that keeps an eye on you after you get the vaccine. You sign up, there's an app that they have, and you sign up for it. And for the first week, every single day, they send you a text message to check on you and see how you're doing. And you say, do I feel good, okay, bad? And you put all the different stuff in there. They ask you lots of questions about your symptoms. So they're tracking all this stuff. So that if they start to, you know, the nice thing about all this high level of tracking is that as soon as it becomes obvious that there is a side effect that a lot of people are having, then they can address it. You want to get in front of it, right? Because if you're hearing it on the news or people are just talking about it randomly, then you start to not trust it, you know. But if we can, you know, whoever, you know, the authorities say, yep, we've noticed this is happening and this is what you do about it. You know, so we can never say, you know, anything's going to not have side effects. There is always a potential for a side effect. But as far as these vaccines go, we have not seen this big surge of really bad side effects.
Right. And I think we would have, you know, the studies were about over 20,000 patients, and now we've vaccinated, I think, so far, probably in the order of 1 million or so. And we haven't seen these outrageous or major side effects. I think, you know, if you type in Google, you know, side effects of COVID vaccine, you will get an enormous amount of everything, you know, the can of worms. And I think it's really recognizing what your sources are, where that information's coming from, you know, if you can trust or not trust it. You know, one person out of millions will put a story of some severe reaction, but how true is that? So I think you'd need reliable sources to really determine for yourself if you believe something you're reading or not. But from the information we have thus far, we're not seeing those rare side effects.
Just to add to what Dr. David West just said, so I just quickly Googled it. So according to Bloomberg News, the US has administered 23.5 million doses
There you go,
of
yeah.
vaccines. That's a big number
Yeah.
of people who have gotten that vaccine. And so we would be, like Dr. Davis says, with that high number of vaccinations going on, we're going to find out if something bad is happening.
I have a question.
Okay, Ms. Roper, go right ahead.
Thank you. Did you say that someone that have cancer, they could be prioritized to get the vaccine?
They right now that is on the recommendation list to prioritize them. Again, as far as facilities, community centers, X, Y, and Z of how to get the vaccine to those patients, I'm not too, I don't know the answers to that. Maybe Mecca can speak to that, or one of our other community leaders can discuss that in more detail. But yes, patients with cancer or undergoing cancer treatment should be prioritized.
I need to know because I'm one of those patients.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to know, let's put it like that, you know.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, on the New York State website, they actually have, it's actually pretty nice that they have this vaccine is being administered in phases. They have phase 1A, which was primarily the health workers and frontline workers, then 1B. And each week, it's a new group of people are allowed to get the vaccine. So if you go to the New York State website, you will actually be able to see, based on your medical condition, when you're actually kind of like when your turn comes up for you to be able to get the vaccine. Yeah. And then when that happens, you can sign up on the website or contact your physician, and they'll help you facilitate, getting signed up.
Yeah, I did
cancer patients. Yeah, cancer patients are in group 1B and 1C now. So you're really the next stop.
Because I did speak to my physician here in White Plains at the cancer center, and all she could tell me is that they don't have the vaccine as yet. So I said to her, I would like to be added on the list if you do receive the vaccine. But
I think that's definitely reasonable, but then going to the website and signing up through the website is also a good idea, because then based on the answers that you give, stating you are a cancer patient, then you should be added to the list of, like, at the Westchester County Center is giving vaccines to the public. And so hopefully.
That's great information. I didn't know that. Thank you.
And let me say this is Reverend Trollinger. Ms. Roper also had another question in regards to the pop-up vaccine that's occurring throughout New York State. In regards to the one that happened at Calvary Baptist Church, it was a call that the governor's office gave to us on a Thursday. We said yes on Thursday. We didn't find out the information until Friday. They didn't clarify everything until a Sunday, and then the pop-up on Monday and Tuesday. So when it's pop-up, it's pop-up. The only problem that we had with the pop-up experience at Calvary was that the medical unit, the medical entity that gave the vaccine was not from Westchester. They were from New York City. Thus, the reason why Westchester County people were not informed in regards to the pop-up. And so when we found ourselves having the availability to add more people to our list, we began to call people around White Plains and around so people to come in, and we were able to use and they only gave us 500 vaccines, but we were able to make sure that when they had people that didn't show up, we were able to call people from around and get them the shot. So it's the governor's office that presents it, and they did not present it in a good, manageable way for our community, but that's our conversation with the governor's office when they want to do it again, to make sure that our community is prioritized and not people from the Bronx that get the notice before anybody in Westchester gets the notification.
Yes, I just wanted to say real quickly, we do have Mecca Mitchell and Michelle Johnson also from Westchester Medical. Mecca, did you want to greet us or say something or chime in on this, please?
You know, that there's so much wonderful information. I almost don't want to take any additional time away from our phenomenal speakers. But I do want to just reiterate that so much information is coming out. It's coming out very quickly. The best way to stay up to date with so much of this is looking at the New York State site. And we can provide those links. The New York site is ny.gov/vaccine. Or looking at our website at WMC Health, we have been the designated hub for the vaccination process. And so looking at our site, it's wmchealth.org/vaccine-info. Now we will provide that information so it can be shared with the participants on the call today, but that really is your best source of updated information as it changes. We try to make sure we share that with you. And more importantly, we try to make sure we share as much information as we can by participating in forums like the one today. We're just grateful that we have the opportunity to join you this evening.
Thank you, Mecca. I now I got a face with the name. You and I talked several times, and I kept looking at you. I said, "Is that the one?" So you are the one. But thank you for putting this together and
Bishop, we got a question that came into vaccine@greenbergny.com.
Excuse me?
We have a question that came in through vaccine@greenbergny.com. It says, is a person on blood thinners, what should they, for a person on blood thinners, what should they should be mindful of? Should they still get the vaccine?
I would say yes. You may have just more bruising than somebody without blood thinners at the site, but no other contraindication that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and I administered it to numerous people on blood thinners, and there was no issue at all. Very, very easy, no big deal. And the needle that they're using for this vaccine is so tiny. I haven't given a vaccine in so long, but it makes me feel so good because the patients all say, "Wow, I didn't even feel that." And it makes me feel like it's my technique that's so good, but it's actually just tiny needle.
I have a question that came into me, and it's concerning the cultures and the side effects. And it's are there any difference in the side effects between cultures, like white versus black, Hispanic, or those cultures, as far as side effects?
No.
Okay, good.
Bishop, I believe Viviana has a question. I think her hand is up.
All right. Go right ahead.
Hi, good evening. Since we were talking about side effects, I have the population of people who like to self-treat. So let me ask this question. Because I know that people who have heart palpitations may take a baby aspirin and go and take a nap. What are some of the side effects that they should be alerted to alert their physician to?
I mean, the side effects that we're seeing, the most common side effect is pain at the place where you got the injection. So, which is fairly common, arm pain. You can get flu-like symptoms, chills, low grade fever, those types of things, feeling fatigued, feeling, muscle aches in general. If your fever is on the high side, if you're 101, that's not that concerning. If you're climbing 102, 103, that's getting a little bit more concerning. So I would want to definitely notify my physician if I, start getting these higher fevers. And anything that's just out of the ordinary. If you're, feeling, confused for some, that's not a common side effect, but if you start having those kind of things, you want to reach out to your doctor. Like anything else, if you, unusual symptoms that you were having, I would want to just reach out to my doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo that. Again, most common is the arm pain, fatigue. Some people may have some swelling of lymph nodes in the area, the side that they got the vaccine. They may have swelling in the neck area or under the arm, but all that is transient. And I would echo what Dr. Mill said. If things are persistent, if you're having prolonged symptoms and again, just feeling of unwell, you would contact your doctor.
Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Rebel?
Yes, thank you for having me and including me in this forum. I was just wondering, is there any research or anything about you're just having one shot rather than two, because and would you get the same immunity? And is this vaccination similar to the flu vaccination, where you have to take it, or you recommend that you take it every year?
Yeah.
How
great.
long does the
Yeah, great question. So the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, once that gets the emergency use authorization, that one is a single shot vaccine. That's how they did the clinical trial. So that's how they'll actually put it out there. These other two, because the trials were done as a sequence of 2 shots, that's how they'll continue to be administered, as the sequence of 2 shots. As far as you're kind of, I think I see what you're going with it is this like going to be like a flu shot where every year you got to come for your COVID shot?
Right.
You know, the reason we get an annual flu shot is because each year the strain of the flu is different. You know, it's got different combinations of sequences of what makes the flu. So the people who make that vaccine try to predict which strain of the flu is going to be the problem this year. Whereas this COVID-19 is one strain, although there's, you know, some mutations happening right now. But as far as will you need an additional shot, it all comes down to your main question, which is how long are you going to have the immunity for?
Right.
And the answer is we don't know yet, right? Okay. So they have to follow that and see, you know, a year from now, do you still have the antibodies after you got that vaccine? If those antibodies are still in your system, then it says that you still probably have some immunity, and you won't need to have recurrent and repeated shots or booster shots of the vaccine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I was wondering, what can we do as a community to be more involved with people being able to be vaccinated? Because it seems like it's a very hodgepodge process. And that's for many reasons, of course, but how can the community itself become more involved with helping our community get these vaccinations to the people that really need it? Because we have a question here that also said that from Angela Farish, that said we need to get mobile vaccinations to the senior elderly buildings in Westchester. And that's very true. So how can we as a community work together along with state and medical and things like that to get these vaccinations to the people that need it?
Yeah, so one of the main ways, I mean, there's a lot of different things. I'll just comment on a couple. I'm sure Dr. David will have a lot more than what I'm going to say, but one of the ways is anybody who has any healthcare background, even if you're a retired nurse, retired aide, retired physician, you know, we need you out there. You know, come volunteer to help with administering the vaccines. And if you're not a healthcare person, see if you're qualified to help register people for the vaccine when they come to the site. So having more volunteers makes it a lot easier to actually be able to handle the number of patients who need to get the vaccine. And I'm sure Mecca can probably speak a little bit more about, you know, getting the word out about, you know, telling people it's safe to get the vaccine, right? That we want you to get the vaccine. And, you know, engaging the community to say this is something that we should be doing, so that instead of right now we have a problem, which is we don't have enough vaccine, but we want to be able to see everybody coming out for it when that vaccine is available.
I'm gonna throw Mecca underneath the bus. Mecca needs to speak.
So thank you. I think, and I'm actually going to pull in Judith to talk a little bit to this issue as well. So because of the issue of how do we really tap into communities to ensure that the vaccination process, the entire process, is fair and equitable, the governor's office, when putting together hubs or designated sites, also required that we create health equity task forces to look at these issues, to look at what are the challenges, not just transportation, not just whether a site is accessible to someone in a wheelchair, but what are the language barriers? What are the cultural barriers? What are those other nuances? Who can get off of work and who can't? Who has ready access? Who has the understanding about the process and who doesn't? And so we are heading up one of those health equity task forces. I am one of the leads, but we immediately went out and pulled in the experts. So Judith is sitting on our hub and our task force to make sure that as we go about this process, we're taking all those considerations into account, because the message is important, the messengers is important, where we're going to reach, and what is going to have the best resonance. All of those are dependent on so many different factors. We want to take that all into account. And so I'll kick it over to Judith, because as someone who's been doing this far longer than I have, her expertise is what we have on our various task forces.
Thanks, Mecca. And you folks in Greenberg know me to be very plain spoken and very straightforward. Now, let's be clear. There are 7 million people right now, today, in the state of New York that need to be vaccinated. 7 million people. 7 million people. That's covered under group 1A and 1B, right? Now, New York State's been receiving about 200,000, has been allocating about 200,000 vaccines per week. That's never gonna do it, right? So I wanna keep it real with you all. It's gonna take some time for vaccines to become available so that they can actually be used to vaccinate all of the people. Performance of the Christmas song. Welcome, Phil. There are organizations such as, of course, Westchester Medical Center, the Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center Network, that's prepared, willing, able to vaccinate all of our folks. We're prepared and we're able to do that. But we need the vaccines. We need the resources. When COVID-19 hit here in Mount Vernon, we erected a COVID walk-up facility, right? Because as you know, there were drive-up facilities all over the county of Westchester, New Rochelle. Go to the drive-up, get your COVID test. But what about the people who don't drive? How are they going to get vaccinated? So in collaboration with the governor's office and the city of Mount Vernon, we erected a COVID walk-up facility here in Mount Vernon where folks can just walk up and get a test. And to date, we're testing 300 people every day, 300 people every day. But here's the challenge. There are no resources for that. Dr. Mill talked about volunteering. There are no resources. You need nurses and doctors. And they've now expanded it to include dental hygienists and some other folks who are able to vaccinate. But you need people to vaccinate. You need resources to vaccinate. You need resources, but there are none, right? So we're gonna have to do the best that we can together to get people vaccinated. And so right now, as we speak, Supervisor Feiner and I are working on a plan to try to get the folks in the town of Greenberg vaccinated. But I need the vaccine. I need the resources. I need the vaccine. So we can do it, but we have to do it together. And it's not easy. There's no silver bullet here, if that's the term. I'm not even sure. But there's no easy way to do this. So I won't blow smoke up here. You know what? There are no vaccines around and there are not a lot of resources. So we're going to do the best that we can to get this done.
Patricia, what I'll add to that before we get to the question is that I think what we can do now is what we're doing right now is education, constantly educating our communities, physicians educating their patients, every single person that walks in the door, because the minute the vaccines do become more readily available, these questions won't be there anymore. People won't be fearful. People won't be hesitant. They'll be ready to go. They will sign up and go because the vaccine's available. So I think a huge component right now is education and dispelling myths.
And
I'm
just
gonna put a quick
one last
plug in.
thing, and partnership, because again, we don't, to Judith's point, we can't do this by ourselves. Hospitals, healthcare institutions, as phenomenal as we are, we don't keep communities healthy from behind the four walls of our system alone. We partner with community-based organizations, faith-based institutions, social service agencies, food pantries, academic institutions. And so that's the collective effort that is going on right now is what it's going to take. And that is not a one-off, that's an ongoing activity.
Mecca, could you talk about
another question? That brings up another question that I think is very serious with the information that Mecca and Judith just addressed. In my mind, and with the 1A and 1B tier, they are available now to get the vaccine, but there is no vaccine. Is there a way of tracking these people so when the vaccine can come, they are contacted? Because a lot of these people want the vaccine, but it's no vaccine. So you go to 1B, 1C, and you left those out in 1B. So how do you cover that gap?
Once again, Patricia Weems has a question, and that question is it possible for you all to put up a link? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you put a link up for those people who are trying to get in? I couldn't get in. Richard sent it to me. Now I'm getting calls and other people need the link, and I don't know how to go out and give them the link. So maybe if y'all could put up some kind of way on this board.
It's in the chat. So the link, we're putting links in the chat, but we're happy to share that so it can be shared with the participants on this call also.
Okay.
Yes, and to that point, after we wrap up here, what we will do is we will post the link not only for the state, but also for the Westchester Medical Center to make sure that it's on the Greenberg site, in addition to a YouTube video of this session so everyone can refer back to it, and any questions that they may have, or just those who were not able to attend this evening will be able to view this Zoom meeting. But I just want to say thank you so much for all the panelists and everyone. I mean, this is such good information. I've learned so much, but thank you so much.
Now, can I ask my question? My question is, for those of us who have allergies when we turn 29, okay? And it's hard to breathe anyway. And if you already taken a flu shot and you got the flu from it, that means you stopped taking that 15 years ago. So the question is, if I don't take it, what should I do to see to it that I stay healthy? Now, I've been staying in, doing my distancing from people. Some people will go out and buy things for me, but I don't want to take it and then have to take another one and put myself in jeopardy. Either way, I'm 6 in one hand, half a dozen in another. I'm going to lose one way or the other. So I'm saying I'd much rather have somebody who's not going to lose take my shot. But if I can wait for the one shot from Johnson & Johnson, is that, no, I'm serious, then I don't have to do it twice. And I don't have to pull on my body to try to stay healthy. So, what do we do for those of us who are trying to figure out what is best to do?
Yeah, you mentioned already all the things that you're doing, and you'll continue that. I think what we have to remember here is it's a personal decision. You weigh your risks and benefits.
Right.
If your risk of exposure is relatively low because you are staying indoors, you're social distancing, you're wearing your mask, your gloves, you're probably a much lower risk than somebody who has to go out and be out in a crowded environment or because of their job. So you continue doing your safety measures and precautions as necessary. And it's absolutely reasonable to wait until the one-shot vaccine comes, or to wait till there's more information until you feel safer and more comfortable. You should not feel pressured or strained to rush and do it now.
Okay, my question is to Judith Watson. Hi there. Question, you're saying that you do not have the vaccine. Now, is it because the vaccine is just not coming to the minority neighborhoods? Is there some way that we can see to it that everybody has equal access to the vaccine and we're not getting it, and we know we haven't done well in the past. So I'm just saying, in order to see to it that we can promote equality throughout the county, you know, and that it is done with forethought, that everybody gets a shot at it. How do we get that for this community? Who do we call? You know, I'll write a letter and call in 5 seconds.
Pat, first and foremost, your name is on my list, and so you will be.
I already got my call, and I told him to tell you and left you a message to announce this meeting tonight while you're calling the people.
That's number one.
I sent it to you in Stinson and Vicky.
As soon as it comes in, you're getting yours. But with regard to vaccine equity, I think Mecca articulated that extremely well, in that we are going to ensure that our community is represented, and that our community receives the vaccine. We're on virtual meetings all day, every day, and we listen very attentively. Now, we understand there are a limited amount of doses right now. So for me personally, it doesn't make sense for me to cause a stink, right? However, when New York State is armed with an appropriate amount of doses, you can rest assured that our community will not be left behind.
Okay, and the other thing was, is there a fee when, like you said, Mount Vernon was open and everybody could come in and walk in? Do they have to pay a $30 fee to be tested?
No, and actually, I'm happy you said that, Pat, because I didn't say that. We've tested close to 18,000 people. We opened on April 17th, close to 18,000 people.
All right.
And you can walk up. We're testing 300 people a day. You can either call New York State, get an appointment, or you can walk up to the Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center here. It's in the rear lot. There are tents out there. We have a team. You get in and out. You get tested in and out. There is no cost that's associated with it. New York State picks up the bill for the PPE and the tents. Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center provides staffing.
Okay. Is that also extended to Greenberg or Norwood Road?
Oh, absolutely, Pat. Absolutely. Or you can go to your Greenberg site and have it there. But the free walk up is here in Mount Vernon. So just come down. For anyone who's on the call who needs a test, just come down and get a test.
I do have to interject. I'm sorry, but I do have to leave the meeting. This has been incredible. And Dr. Mill, I'm leaving you all in excellent hands to answer any further questions. But I hope that I've contributed to this talk. If anybody has any last minute questions for me, particularly in reference to cancer, women's health, pregnancy, I'm happy to answer any last few, but I do have to leave. I've got some little kids that are, I'm sure, giving my husband run for his money.
Well, before you jump off, let me publicly, as the coordinator for this, say thank you so much. And you've been so helpful, and we appreciate you. And so that when you get ready to jump off, we don't have to say it. Our prayers are with you, and congratulations on your new pregnancy. And we look forward to working with you in the future. And if I need a pretty doctor, I'm coming to see you.
Well, thank you very much. I really hope I don't ever have to see you.
That's right. Thank you so much.
No, but thank you. It's a privilege to be on this call, and I'm honored to have been invited. So thank you all. It was really a phenomenal discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mecca, could you explain the governor's task force that I'm on, so that it will explain how minorities will not be, and our communities will not be left out of the vaccine? Because I think the governor did a good job in creating it, but I don't think our community knows about the ambassadors and everything else that's happening within Westchester being the hub and its regions.
Sure. So one of the, and I, just to back up, I had the privilege of working as part of the governor's administration before I came to Westchester Medical. I am the former Chief Diversity Officer for the state of New York. where I had a chance to work with people like Gina Jackson in the executive offices. And so I can tell you firsthand, because I've heard it firsthand, about the governor's commitment when it comes to issues of equity, increased opportunities, equalizing the playing field, making sure that all the voices are taken into consideration. And so as these conversations about the vaccination first started to evolve, equity was always in the forefront. It was always part of a conversation. Again, we have our hub here for the Mid-Hudson Valley region. There are health equity hubs throughout the state. Not only that, I actually sit on the New York State Minority Health Council. I was appointed to that council. These conversations dominate that agenda. I sit on the diversity task forces for the Greater New York Hospital Association and the Health Association of New York. Everyone is having the conversation that we're having right now. And just as Judith says, as a Black woman, I can tell you, when it's time for our voices to be heard, and our voices to make sure they resonate in spaces where decisions are being made, we make sure that happens. We were doing that before COVID hit. Those of us who have been in this space understand that the fight for health equity and reduction of health disparities was a conversation we've been having for years. Here's the reality. It's a conversation we'll be having once we get past the COVID hump. And so I think, again, the ongoing infusion of equity as being part and parcel with this conversation is something that is actively happening. And again, issues from making sure that whoever is administering the vaccine, again, that there's some cultural intelligence associated with it, that the bias, because bias is interwoven in so many institutions, including healthcare, that we're rooting out that bias and trying to make sure that we can minimize its impact, making sure that we're taking all the various communities, and I mean the differently abled community, communities that speak different languages, even some of the issues that have come up on this call tonight. I've been taking notes to make sure that I'm able to make sure those get shared with our state reps and get funneled up to the governor's office as decisions get handled down. So the information flow is bottom up, top down, but it's happening simultaneously. It's happening at the same time. And again, as someone who's been in this space, as someone who's been an advocate across several spaces, I was pleasantly surprised that this wasn't the fight we necessarily had to jump on right away. And I see Judith shaking her head. I think so many of us are used to, from the beginning, we're gonna have to fight to make sure this wasn't the fight we had to hit head on because they had taken these factors into consideration. Now, is it still a fight? It always is. But we've got advocates who are doing it statewide, doing it across the communities. And so our Health Equity Task Force represents all of the regions, all of the counties, and all of the communities. Our task force isn't a task force of 5 people, 10 people. We've got about 80 people who are from the various segments of the community whose voices are represented. And so again, I think if that is the foundation upon which we filter what is it we're doing, and that feedback is from this community is reflected, I think we will all be in a better place. And these are the opportunities where we like to message that because we think it's important that people know that. I think rightly so, the trust that was lost, the trust that gets lost sometimes, especially when it comes to healthcare, is a real thing. The onus isn't on the community to build it up. The onus is on us, the healthcare organizations, government, to build it back. And that's what we're doing through events like this. So thank you, Reverend Tondra, who also sits on our Health Equity Task Force and is a vocal voice just when it comes to partnering on these issues. Thank you. And again, we're just grateful to be a part of tonight's conversation.
Mecca, just really quick, my question to you, the task force that you just mentioned, is that statewide or is that countywide?
The Health Equity Task Forces are statewide. Our task force covers the Hudson Valley region. And so we reflect all the counties throughout the Hudson Valley. And again, all the diverse populations, from the seniors to the differently able to LGBT, African-American, Latinx, just anyone you can think of, they're reflected on our task force.
Is there a website, is there any way that we can link our website or provide a link to what things that you guys have been working on so we can provide updates to our residents in Greenberg, or anyone is welcome, of course, to visit the Town of Greenberg website? but we can link some information for us for people to visit.
Absolutely. And again, I think for us, when we put the Health Equity Task Force together, understand that it wasn't an all-inclusive list. So for someone like you, Gina, who I happen to know already, let's have a conversation offline about seeing about adding you so that you can be someone who is a facilitator of spreading that information to the community.
Can I put my hat in there for Miss Miller to be asked? She knows our community and she's well off and known through our community, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Now we got about 10 more minutes and we're going to have to bring this to a close. You've been a wonderful, wonderful congregation. I feel like I'm in church.
Bishop Preston, I know
yeah.
Miss Shirley Rogers has been patiently waiting
Okay.
To ask a question.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is a basic question that goes back to square one. The registration process for the vaccine. Must you do so on the New York State website, or can you do so locally, like at your town hall or whatever? And once you register, what happens? You get a receipt, and if I should hear that town hall in Buchanan or an area in Buchanan is given the vaccination, can I go to any town? Or are there stipulations for where you can go? You know, if you hear there's a vaccination being given here or there, you know, do you pick and choose? And must you be tested? Is it important to be tested before the vaccination? I'm thinking yes, but those general questions you don't hear people talk too much about. And as a matter of fact, this is the first forum that I attended, and I'm loving it. I thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for the experts, administrators, and medical staff doing a wonderful job. But let's go back to square one and sort of explain that to me.
Thank you. Is that me? Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
Yes.
Ms. Rogers, in terms of registration, so yes, you would go onto the state website, and Mecca, you can jump in and help me out if needed. You go on the state website and you get registered, but it depends on which organization you intend to get tested at, right? So, for example, for Mount Vernon, and we have not yet shared our link with New York State because we got a few hundred doses at our Yonkers site, and the volume of calls that came in crashed our telephone system. And so we're being very careful. We're being very careful. And so for us at Mount Vernon Neighborhood Health Center, there's a registration process. So you would contact the organization. And I think the state site directs you to various organizations who have every organization does it a different way. So you get registered with the organization where you plan on being vaccinated. Does that sound right, Mecca? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Johnson. I work for Mecca Mitchell. I just wanted to chime in for a couple of reasons. One, I just took my parents to get vaccinated on Saturday. We had a pretty seamless process at the county center. I was proud to be a WMC Health member. And I just wanted to touch upon the comment regarding the state's website. So the state's website actually only has the state operated vaccination centers, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm gonna try to look for the link and put it in the chat before we get off the site, because they don't have the local, like Mount Vernon is not one of the listed sites on the state's website. Westchester County Center is there, Javits Center is there, and there are a couple of others. It's about 11. So it's not the totality of centers that are throughout the state. So I just wanna make that clear. And Judith, I think you said you all in Mount Vernon, you haven't sent your center to the state yet, right?
No.
So,
And it has changed, Michelle. Let me just say, it has changed. It was something different last week.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
This week, those are the sites that are listed. Last week, it was different. Our Yonkers site was listed, but continue, please.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to just make that clear. And again, my colleague is on this call as well. I'm going to ask while I'm talking if she maybe could find the New York State. You can check eligibility and then it'll give you locations. But to everyone's point, right now on the state's website, you can't get any vaccine or appointments are taken up through April 16th of 2021. And that's the reality right now. And as everyone stated, we're just waiting to get more doses. And as those doses become available, more appointments will become available. But that's why this is so important, that when they do become available, folks will have been educated, and perhaps and hopefully they feel in a better position to make a decision that's personal to them and their family. So I just wanted to make that clear. And thank you so much for inviting our organization. We're just happy to be a part of this conversation, and we know that this is only the beginning. So thank you to Greenberg for setting the stage for us. I see my boss taking copious notes, so that means that's more work for me tomorrow, which is okay, because this is what, why we're here, and getting this message out and ensuring equity throughout this process is what it really means to us. And this is so important to us. So thank you.
I have one more question. Be that as it may, can I just add to my question? Be that as it may, you must still go to the state website to register regardless. Yes?
If to register, my understanding is that it's to register for a state operated vaccination center.
Right.
That's my question.
And that I believe that that's outside of, like, I know you're seeing in the news like CVS and other pharmacies,
right,
also,
right.
But they're going into nursing homes and assisted living. That's not the same as what's available on the state's website.
Well, what's the purpose of registering then? If I register there and decide that, if I find out CVS is giving the shot, does the state give me a certificate or a receipt or something that I take to CVS? No. You understand what I'm saying?
You can't, if there are no appointments available, my understanding is that you can't register right now.
But I need that registration no matter where I go, correct?
No.
Yes, that's unless it's a location that is a pop-up and doesn't require an appointment, like Mount Vernon, correct, Judith? You all don't require appointments. So I know it's a lot. It requires you to stay on top of things, and because things are changing every day and things are changing every week, and I know that makes it more frustrating. But this is a situation that we've never encountered in many of our lifetimes. So this is all new and it's nuanced for all of us, and we just have to take it day by day. But I can assure you that WMC Health is here to help along the way as best as we can. And this is not a one and done. We're going to continue to bring information that will come through our task force members like Reverend Trollinger and whoever else we may get as a result of this meeting. But it's an ongoing process, and we just ask for patience as we try to get this information out as quickly as possible, but in an efficient way, so that everyone who wants to get vaccinated can.
All right, thank you.
Does it mean that where Yonkers gets the medicine, the vaccine, but not Mount Vernon and Greenberg at the same time? Doesn't that cause a great deal of problems?
It's coming, Pat. It's coming. We will be receiving allocations for all of our sites, Mount Vernon, Yonkers, Greenberg, and possibly some of our smaller sites as well.
Okay.
This is the way that it is right now. They wanted to get the employees vaccinated first.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And with what we had left, we vaccinated our patients and some of the community members. So we expect the allocations for all sites.
Thank you.
What we expect.
Let me jump in. Let me jump in here
Bishop,
yes.
I'm sorry. I just want to ask my last question, and then you can wrap it up. Okay.
All right.
Just really quickly. So Michelle Mecca, you mentioned, Michelle, you mentioned that the state website doesn't have the full list. Will your website have the full list of sites where they can go to, where people can go to if they're looking to get vaccinated? Because you said that the state only has a condensed list, correct? Or doesn't have the full list of all of the locations? I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
I think we're confusing the state. The state registration is for where state availability of vaccines to occur.
Okay.
Where other private health industries or pop-ups are happening, they are not on the state.
Got it.
Only be able to get the vaccinations on the state registry based upon where the state is giving the vaccine.
That's
once again, so if you look for the vaccines that were happening at Calvary last Monday and Tuesday. They were not on the state list because they were not being given out by the state. So the state will afford you Jacob Javits, they will afford you Westchester County, they will afford you what's happening in Brooklyn, but they will not tell you where those other pop-up places are.
Got it.
Private and
Thank you.
separate.
Thank you for clearing that. Thanks for clarifying.
And the link is now, and the link to the state is now in the chat for anyone who'd like to copy and paste it. But again, this information we hope to make available to you all after this call. I know that we're approaching 8 o'clock, Bishop, so I'm gonna stop talking now.
Bishop,
yeah.
one thing, if you or Francis Sheehan could look into the chat area and get those questions answered, because I got some members hitting me up saying their questions are not being answered. So
yeah, okay, I think Francis monitoring that. Garrett might have been monitoring that. So if you see some questions that hasn't been answered, we'll extend the time to answer those questions. But we need to bring this to a close. This has been awesome. This has been awesome. So it's Francis or Garrett?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think there's one or two. If a person was recently discharged from the hospital due to COVID-19 symptoms and received treatments with medications such as RMD, VIS,
Remdesivir.
Thank you. While in the hospital, should they get the vaccine or should they wait for a period of time?
Yeah, so right now the recommendation is if you were recently really sick with COVID, particularly if you were treated with what we call the monoclonal antibodies, you are advised to hold off on getting the vaccine. And the vaccine, the form you fill out actually has it on there. I believe, I want to say it's about a month that you're supposed to wait, but don't quote me on that. It's actually on the sheet when you fill it out, that you have to wait a certain amount of time after you've received the monoclonal antibodies. For remdesivir, there's no real restriction on that, because the people who get remdesivir typically are going to be people who are milder cases. But the only real restriction I've seen is on the monoclonal antibodies.
Thank you. A question was posed, where do we find listings of other vaccine sites other than New York State website?
I think that was addressed. Yeah, that was addressed, that you won't be able to figure out where the pop-up was. It's just hearing them.
Okay. If we missed you in the chat, I apologize. I would encourage you to unmute and pose that question now.
But just to be clear though, it's important when you get the vaccine that you're not sick. If you just got out of the hospital, you're still not feeling well, that's not a good time to get the vaccine. I had my brother contact me and say, oh, my friend is in the ICU. Can you help her get the vaccine?
No.
I said, no. The person has to fully heal. The vaccine is not going to make any difference on the person in the ICU, because think about it, that person is already making their own antibodies at that point. So you want to wait till they've fully healed, and then you go and get the vaccine.
Thank you. This has been great, and it has been overwhelming to me with the volume of information. I think the questions has been right on point, and I think this is the genesis of these types of conversation that need to take place at the rubber meet the road level. What I mean by that, at the bottom of the community, because that's who we serve, and my church is right in the middle of the low-income people, and they are the ones that usually get overlooked and are put at the back of the line. I'm determined as a pastor and as a community worker not to let that happen with this, and so we need to have more conversations with this. Let me thank Mecca for helping me to put this together and recommending such great people from the Westchester Medical Center. You guys have been wonderful. Dr. Mill, you just blew my mind, and Dr. West, we just enjoyed you so much. Let me thank my friend Judith, we always work together. We've been working together so long. She had me over in town hall, jumping and screaming, trying to get the new building for the health center in Greenberg. We got it done. So we just love working together. Let me thank Paul Finer and the town of Green.
Now listen.
Excuse me. And let me thank Paul Finer and the town of Greenberg and the board, town board, for giving us this access. I think we ought to give them. Let's be in church a minute and give them a hand. Because this has been a great tool, and I think we need to keep this tool available for the community, and we're going to work toward that. I'm going to be speaking to Paul Finer and the town board to keep this kind of access for the community. We need this, and so I think our town board member Gina Jackson is on, and I don't see who else, but Gina is an awesome leader, and we're really thankful for her and her great work. And we want to continue to work like this. Let me thank all the Ministers Fellowship Council for allowing me to be the coordinator to put this together along with the committee. I think the committee and I have done, I think we've done an excellent job. If not, get back with us, and the best way I can fix this is just we'll do it again. And I think we have to do it again. I don't think we reach enough people. Now, I want to say this because I think there's some people from out of state that's on tonight. And let me recommend that you go to your health center, your physician, and find out how you can get make the contacts you need to make in order to get what's available as far as being vaccinated in your local area. We wanted to spread this out as far as possible because information is always useful. I don't care where you are. It makes no difference where you are. It's been a joy working with you, and I pray that God's blessings and God's safety and God's hand of mercy will rest upon all of you and keep you in good health and in good peace, and let us love one another and be safe out there. And with that being said, I'm going to ask Pastor Trollinger to close us with a brief prayer.
Father, we thank you for your goodness and your mercy. You said in your word that my people are destroyed because of the lack of knowledge. And so, Father, we have used this instrument tonight to make sure that that doesn't happen within our community and within our own personal lives. Now let us grasp what we have heard. Let us extend it within our hearts. Let us meditate it upon our minds, Father, that we may share truth and even beyond that, share our experience with others. Bless our communities and our neighborhoods, and especially bless our new government and give them the availability and the access to make sure that this that has occurred will be even more bountiful in regards to releasing more vaccines within our communities for those that need it. In your son's name we pray, amen and amen.
Amen.
Good night, everyone.
Have a blessed night. God bless you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Congratulations, Bishop, and to the ministers.
Thank you.
Dr.
Good
Bill,
to see
great
you.
to meet
Good to
you.
see everyone.
Dr. Great to see you. Good night, everyone. Bishop,
Good night.